Welcome to the Checkup with Dr. Bryan Terry, paid for by Bryan Terry for State Representative, Cheryl Terry, Treasurer. I'm Dr. Bryan Terry, State Representative in District 48 in Tennessee. Welcome to our first edition of the Checkup. It's an update of sorts for our community and the Capitol, where we will discuss issues, topics, bills, and happenings relative to Rutherford County in Tennessee. If you're a constituent, you may have been receiving my email updates entitled the Capitol Checkup for state-related information or the Community Checkup, which involves more local news. I also had a live checkup back in November where Leader William Lamberth came down to Murfreesboro and we spent a couple of hours talking to folks about new laws that had passed and discussing what might occur in 2026. I received pretty good feedback, and I had some folks inquire about something more like a podcast or at least an audio update. And while I thought about it, out of the blue, I got contacted by an MTSU student wanting to work with me. We met and discussed how she could get involved, and we're going to give this audio update a go. So I have with me Ella Phillips, a student from MTSU. Ella, we're glad to have you.
Well, thank you for having me today, Dr. Terry. I'm excited to see how we can communicate and discuss local and state issues that you guys are discussing in session and how we can communicate those to individuals like me who may not be as informed about those or keep us up to date on them. So thank you.
Thanks for being with me. I think this is going to be pretty fun.
I agree. I'm excited to gain some new insight.
Now, being in the medical field and this being the checkup, I kind of wanted to organize these updates like an appointment of sorts. You know, in medicine, we have H&Ps, or what we call history and physicals, and that's kind of an in-depth evaluation when you first see a patient. And there's pretty much a written protocol that doctors go through for that. The follow-up or the updates are usually written in something that we call a SOAP note. That's basically an acronym meaning subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. Basically, what's the main concern of the subject? What do you objectively see from your evaluation of the patient? What is your assessment of the situation? And what is your plan or recommendation? And so kind of how doctors have a SOAP note, you know, in nursing or when transferring care to another provider, there's also a four-letter acronym called SBAR, which is pretty similar. It's called Situation, Background, Assessment, and Recommendation. And so with our checkup, I'm going to try to organize that into this four-step process. So each time what I'll try to do is start with whatever our subject is or whatever our topic is, and then discuss objectively what I'm seeing, and then give an assessment of the situation as I see it, and then give the plan or recommendation that you as a listener or what we can do. And sometimes that plan, much like in medicine, is to get more information, kind of like ordering more tests to kind of see where things go. What do you think about that, Ella?
I think that sounds like a plan, and I like how you're incorporating your medical profession into the format in which we're going to be discussing things, so as a listener it's easier to understand.
So getting started with today's checkup, let's talk about our subject for today, and that's going to be the Tennessee General Assembly 2026 session, which begins on Tuesday, January 13th, and we're going to talk about what to expect. What do you think about that, Ella?
That sounds good. It's right around the corner, too, so you guys have a lot going on. So let's hop into it.
Sounds good. Let's get started with today's checkup, and our subject today is going to be the Tennessee General Assembly 2026 session, which begins on Tuesday, January 13th, and we're going to kind of talk about what to expect as we go into it. Objectively, each member of the House will be allowed 10 bills this year as opposed to 15 that we used to get. Each full chairman will get an additional 5 committee subject matter bills as well. So we should see about 500 bills less than we had previously.
Seems like you guys have your hands full with a lot of bills. But why is that, Dr. Terry, that you guys decided to cut back on the number of bills that each member is allotted to put forth as an idea?
Well, you know, Calvin Coolidge once said that it is much more important to kill bad bills than it is to pass good ones. And this move will likely kill 500 bad bills right off the start. So I think that's going to make the session a little bit more efficient and have all the legislators in the House actually prioritize what they're actually going to run and the issues that they want to try to amend in our Tennessee Code Annotated.
So just wanting to make sure I understand, it's kind of trying to emphasize the more important topics and issues that need to be addressed as to a lot of widespread, maybe bills that have no possibility of getting passed as opposed to those that are more likely to be passed.
Yeah, that's correct. I think you have more important bills or prioritize your bills, and in those type of situations, I think what you're going to end up doing is spending your energy on the issues that matter and not trying to, like I said, go about your business trying to kill bad bills or trying to amend bad bills, which is going to waste a lot of taxpayer dollars and time.
Yeah, and like you guys only have a certain amount of months in session too, so you really have to focus on the more important issues in that short length of time. So aside from strictly bills, what else does the General Assembly do in its sessions and whenever you guys do meet and go to Nashville for however long during the week?
Yeah, so constitutionally, the General Assembly has one job, and that is to provide a balanced budget. And that's always the longest process. The governor will usually provide his budget at his State of the State in early February and then put forth a budget amendment in mid or late March. The General Assembly is under no obligation to accept the governor's proposal, but it usually serves as a framework, and then we put in some tweaks.
So aside from the budget, what else does the General Assembly do whenever you guys do meet in your sessions?
So, great question. You know, most individuals, families, and businesses are concerned with 5 core areas that I call SHARE: safety, health, affordability, recreation, and education. And I'll often just transpose, instead of recreation, I'll put roads in there. So folks and business owners want to locate where it is safe, where they have health care, where it's affordable, where there are good roads, and the education is good for their children and employees. Sure, folks care about social issues, and we will certainly see our share of those type of bills, but I'm going to focus on just the share today: the safety, health, affordability, roads, and education. And then I'll talk about the landfill, which is a big issue in my district, on another episode strictly dedicated to that topic. As we go over each area, I'm going to provide a bit of an assessment too. So the objective and the assessment part is probably going to be a bit combined.
So we're starting with safety. Dr. Terry, what kind of bills do you think we're going to see concerning this matter?
Great question. You know, I think with the Memphis Safety Task Force, I think that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on how the state of Tennessee can continue the success that they're having with that. You know, there's a lot of topics about blue cities and red states and how the blue cities are having a lot of crime and having a lot of issues, and how do states that are predominantly red help in those areas. You know, the task force that was in Memphis has found hundreds of missing children, and they've cut down the amount of crime that's been there. And when you talk to the legislators in that area, they talk about how they're getting positive feedback from their constituents, how they're able to go out, enjoy dinner, go out to movies. And I think that we as a state are going to have to see if we can improve on that legislatively. I know the speaker had a meeting with Pete Hegseth to try to discuss this issue and see if there's a way that we can change our laws to improve the conditions in these blue cities. And so I think that's one of the issues, or one of the bills that we're going to be dealing with, is looking for ways to better address the failures of the leadership, the law enforcement, the DAs, and the judges in these areas after the task force leaves.
So do you have any ideas or insight as to what these bills may potentially end up looking like?
I think right now they're just having discussions, and I'm sure they may have some drafts behind the scenes. But right now, all I know is that there's discussions going on and how we can potentially, as a state, go back into these areas and build on the success that the Safety Task Force has had so far.
So switching subject matters, let's go into maybe health aspects and what those bills may surround. Would you like to provide some guidance as to what those may look like?
Yeah, that's great for me. And being the chairman of health, I usually have a lot of insight in what comes before us. You know, as chairman, of any committee, but particularly in health, I usually get about 100 to 120 bills each year that I either have to help improve or try to dispose of. Obviously, with the cut in the number of bills that we will have, that number may go down a bit, which is going to make the committee hopefully a little bit more efficient. But there's probably 4 issues that we're going to deal with from a healthcare perspective. We have the Rural Health Transformation Plan, and that was something that it was from the One Big Beautiful Bill federally. It created $50 billion that is going to be put forth towards rural health care, and each state has the opportunity to get some of that. And so the governor put forth his proposal, and we were awarded, at least for this first year, because it's a 5-year program, this first year we were rewarded with $207 million. And so he's going to have to put forth some bills that align with that. So we're going to have some debate over that as well and see how that goes. Another issue that's come up is medical cannabis. President Trump is looking to reschedule that to a Schedule 3, and that'll be a whole different topic. We could probably do an entire checkup on that, but he has not explicitly rescheduled cannabis at this point in time, but I do expect there to be some discussion on that and some bills put forward on that. And then obviously with Minnesota and their fraud with child care, that usually falls under CCDF, which is Child Care Development Fund. And so I expect there probably will be some bills put forth to kind of tweak or look at how we're doing things here in Tennessee. And I said, from my position, I do think that they have done a good job stopping fraud, or at least holding back on any fraud here in the state of Tennessee on that. And then the last topic, which may not come through Health Committee, it may go through the budget, is the medical school building. If we're trying to improve health care, particularly in rural Tennessee, one thing you have to have is doctors. And the building that they have in Memphis for this, it's way outdated. It's 70, 80 years old. There's a lot of issues within that building. And so if you want to attract the best and the brightest to come to Tennessee, we're going to have to get a new medical school building. And so that's going to be an issue that I think is going to have a lot of discussion. Actually, when we go back into session, one of my first meetings that I'm going to have is with the president of Tennessee University, Randy Boyd. And so that's, I'm sure, going to be one of our topics to discuss.
So in regard to maybe the bills that you're looking towards discussing in session and putting forth, are most of those leaning in a health direction and placing an emphasis on health of people in Tennessee?
So great question. So any representative can put forth a health-related bill. And so as chairman, I get 5 additional bills that are related to my subject matter. So oftentimes I'll put forth a caption bill, which is basically a placeholder bill in case something happens during session, because we have a bill filing deadline, which is the first week of February. And so I want to make sure that I have something on hand in case there's an important topic that comes up. But yes, for the most part, a lot of stuff I stick with is health related, although I always have like some constituent related bills that have nothing to do with health. I usually have something related to the landfill that I can try to help if the county or the city needed something with that. But for the most part, I would say at least half of my bills usually revolve around healthcare.
So the A and share is about affordability. So let's transition to affordability topics that may be discussed.
Sounds good. The first thing that we always do, I always throw under affordability, is our budget. And while I'm not on the finance committee, I always talk with the finance chair, or we have some legislators here in Rutherford County that are on the committee, and they usually give me a pretty good idea of what we may expect. I've been told that we should have a fairly tight budget this year, so that may change a little bit of what some people, whether the governor or the speaker or lieutenant governor, are kind of looking at. So That's one thing that we always do from an affordability standpoint is we do have to pass a balanced budget. But with that, I think that some news that people might be interested in, there will be a bill put forward that's going to put a cap on the rate at which a property tax could be hiked in a county. We'll see how that works out. I think that my understanding of the way the bill may be put forth is that, above a certain percentage, a county may have to put forth a referendum if they want to raise the property taxes above a certain rate. And then another bill that's going to be put forward that I know that they're working on has to do with the real estate transfer tax. And that's really important for Rutherford County. Right now, the real estate transfer tax, Rutherford County sends about $20 million per year up to the capital. And so what they're looking at is getting a percentage of that, maybe half, back to the counties. And so for Rutherford County, that would be $10 million back into their budget, which I think would be a good thing, because if you can do that, then that decreases the amount of property tax hike that they would have to look at in the event that they were looking to raise any other revenue.
So, on the topic of budget, while we're at it, why don't I go ahead and ask why the budget fluctuates year to year?
So, great question. And so, not being on the finance committee, I don't have all the information from the real technical aspects of that. But I would say that, the vast majority of our budget comes from just consumption taxes like sales tax. And so you may have, during the economy, you may have a decrease in the number of, or however much money people are spending at the time. They say in theory that a dollar circulates through the economy anywhere from 5 to 8 times. If you look at it from a sales tax perspective, every time that dollar circulates through the economy, the state gets about 7 cents per dollar, and the locals get 2 cents per dollar, a little bit more than that per dollar. And during a down economy, there's oftentimes the dollar doesn't circulate as much. People hold on to their dollars more, and so it may only circulate 3 times, 4 times. So I do know, like during the first Trump administration, the dollar was circulating a lot more, so there was a lot more activity. So every time it goes through, we get more revenue. Obviously, over the years, we've cut taxes billions of dollars, and so that's something that causes a decrease potentially in some of the funding that comes in. During COVID, money wasn't spent as much, and so those budgets were really tight. During all the inflation that we had with the last administration, I think people weren't spending as much, and so our last few budgets have been fairly static from that perspective. As with the new administration, President Trump, you're seeing a little bit more growth, and so we always have a conservative budget, but I do think that we always play it very, very tight. And so at this point in time, coming off of the Biden administration, of the Trump administration, we're not quite sure that we're going to see big windfalls yet. Obviously, with a lot of inflation, a lot of people aren't spending a whole lot of money or as much money as they had. During Christmas cycle, I think we did see a lot of spending. So we don't get those results until January as such. So, but we're going to play that by ear and expect something really conservative, and then kind of go from there.
Our next topic is roads. So what might those bills look like?
So, I'm not on the transportation committee, but last year, and I do know that there's been some articles about this, and there's been some conversation about indexing the gas tax, and that was something that was not done back in the Haslam administration. I do know that the road builders have had some discussion on potentially putting a bill forth like that. I'm not sure that that's anything that I would be supportive of. Back when we had the previous gas tax hike, which I voted against, I put forth an amendment on the bill that actually would have used the funds that we have from auto sales, auto-related sales, which had about, I think it was about $900 million there, and then some funds from tourism. I think we brought in like I take that back. It was $1.6 billion in tourism taxes at the time. So combined with the auto-related sales, that was $2.5 billion then. And if we just used a portion of that towards roads, I think at the time my calculations were about over $400 million we could have had at the time. So I would look at us, instead of raising taxes or indexing or anything like that, see how else we could diversify the road fund, like using any of these tourism dollars, dedicate one of the 7 cents that we take off of tourism taxes, or doing something along those lines. But I do expect that there may be a push, obviously in a tight budget, if that's what we have this year. And I don't know that there's going to be a big appetite to take on that type of issue this year, but I do know that there's probably going to be a bill coming forward that's going to look at that.
Sticking with roads, what's all the talk about the loop with Elon Musk in Nashville, and will that somehow be implemented in Murfreesboro?
So another great question, and I don't know from a legislative standpoint, I'm not sure that anything's going to be coming forward that we have to do or we could do, but I do know that in my discussions that I've had with the speaker, and he's had several discussions with the boring company that does this, or at least with those related to the boring company. My understanding is that they potentially could do these type of loops, these underground tunnels with these electric vehicles. They could come down to Murfreesboro. They could go all the way, I think, to like Cookeville or to Chattanooga or to Memphis or to Knoxville. And so with that, they have, supposedly multiple exit or ways to get off or out from the tunnels. And so there could be one, say, several in Murfreesboro, or a stop in, Smyrna, Laverne, Antioch on the way down. And so potentially that's a way, without taxpayer funds, to offload I-24. And so, I don't know, I'm interested in talking to some folks about that, seeing if that's a possibility. Anything we can to decrease the traffic on 24, or at least improve the flow for our constituent, I think is a great idea.
So let's hop to education and what those topics may look like and what the discussion is around education in Tennessee.
So another good question. Last year we had the ESA bill that went forth, that put forth, I think, 20,000 scholarships for students for school choice. And within that bill, if they met certain metrics, there's going to be another 5,000 bills that are built in, and that's going to be subject to appropriation. So just because there's another 5,000 scholarships, we still have to appropriate that additional funding for those 5,000 scholarships. There may be a push to get that up to 20,000, but again, there's going to have to be money in the budget for that. And I think, when you're doing that type of stuff, for me, in the original bill that put forth last year, there was funds set aside for infrastructure for growth counties. And so if they're going to expand it, they need to expand the amount of funding that they're going to put toward growth counties like Rutherford County. And so that's something that I'll have to take a look at as well. And I think there's going to be a push to look to address the failing schools in Shelby County. And so I'm not sure what that bill may look like, but I've heard discussions around that as well.
So all this taken into consideration, what are you thinking the plan is moving forward?
So great. So at this point, I haven't seen any of these bills filed yet, so I can't really go into detail on specifics about them. And so the plan for now is just to monitor any bill filings and wait to see the data on these when they come in, and then make my decisions and see if I'm going to support those bills, or have to oppose those bills, or talk to those representatives or whoever's carrying those bills, and see if we can tweak it to help our constituents here in Rutherford County and the constituents in the state of Tennessee.
So, wrapping everything up, it sounds like you have a pretty busy schedule coming up these next couple months and a lot of issues and bills to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting time. I think we're going to have a lot before us. It should be a pretty fast paced session, and I'm looking forward to the challenges ahead.
Well, thank you for having me today, Dr. Terry, and I'm excited to see what we can inform people on moving forward.
I appreciate you being with me, and I'm looking forward to these checkups. And so, for those listening, you can visit BryanTerry410.com and sign up for our email updates or suggest a topic for us to discuss. With Liberty, this is the Checkup with Dr. Bryan Terry.